Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear my voice? Okay. After a long vacation, because of the New Year, New Iranian year, we are back here to continue our course. Today, we will talk about chapter 3, and in this chapter, we will talk about legal, ethical laws, and other professional issues which are related to the information security. Okay. Before continuing the course, let me check something. Okay. From this week, we will start to prepare some exams. One chapter per week. Okay. From this week, we will start to prepare and to take these exams. One chapter per week. This week, tomorrow night. Okay, tomorrow night we will have an exam from chapter 1. In the past, in the first session, I mentioned that after finishing each chapter, we will take an exam, and then we forget that chapter forever. Okay. So for tomorrow night, we will have exam from chapter 1. I will prepare the exam, and I will announce the time of the exam and other related materials in the WhatsApp group, in our WhatsApp group. Okay. Today in this chapter, we'll try to talk about laws, regulation, and professional organization. We will talk about the differences between law and ethics. Also, we'll talk about national laws and international laws, and their relationship with information security. And also, we will talk about the role of culture to apply ethics and their relation with information security. So today, most of materials in chapter 3 in today's lecture is about some things that we could not see them in our computer networks. All of today's topic is about materials related to the people who are working for our organization, who are relating, who makes a relationship with our organization. So it's something different from the other parts of this course. Pay attention to this material. Okay. Why we are focusing on information security? We are working on information security because we want to reduce the risks related to security issues on information in our organization. Okay, but when we try to do this, to reduce these risks, to control the risks, okay, when we try to do this, we should be care about the laws. We should understand the legal environment in our organization. We should stay with laws, with regulation in our organization, in our society, in our nation, maybe international laws. And always we should watch for new issues related to legal and ethical responsibilities in our organization. With respect to the information security. Okay? We define laws and ethics such as this. Laws are some rules that mandate or prohibit certain social behavior. Okay? So laws are rules. Those rules are mandatory. You know, laws are mandatory. They force us to do something or stop doing something. But when we talk about ethics, ethics means an acceptable behavior in our society. So ethics is something related to the society. For example, in Iraq, in your society, you have some acceptable behavior. And when you travel to Iran, you can see some of those behaviors are not acceptable in Iran. And in Iran, there are some other behaviors, acceptable behaviors in the in Iranian societies. Okay, so there is a big difference between laws and ethics. Laws are mandatory. There are some forces. There are forces to do something or not doing something. This is mandatory, applied by force. But in ethics, no, it's related to the society. It's an acceptable behavior. Okay. For example, maybe in most of Muslim nations, hijab is something. For example, in Iran, hijab is something forced by law. Okay, but in the West, no, it's not. There is no rule about the law hijab. So if a woman has hijab in, for example, in the United States, in Canada, in the West, it's something ethical, not something by laws. So there are differences between law and ethics. Also, when we talk about ethics, there are some other related definitions. One of them is cultural mores. You know, when I'm living in a group, in that group, there are some special rules, special functions, special behaviors. Those special rules, behaviors, acts, those items are ethical based on staying with that group. For example, I'm a Muslim and now we are in Ramadan. So I'm fasting, Siyam. Okay, so I'm fasting because I'm a Muslim. As a member of Muslim groups, I'm fasting because now is Ramadan. It's something cultural in the culture of in the Muslims culture, fasting in Ramadan. But in the West, in the East, no, it's not cultural. They eat always, for example. Okay. One more thing. As I said, laws are forced by government or by something else. So if someone forgets laws, someone denies the laws, there are some sanctions applied by the government. But for ethics, no, there is no sanction or penalty when I forget or deny something ethical. For example, if I don't help someone else, okay, there is no sanction or penalty for me, but it's not ethical. For example, a poor man or woman staying in the street, he or she is hungry. It's ethical. If I buy something and uh, get it to that poor people, uh, it's something ethical. But if I don't do this, there is no sanction or penalty for me. Okay, so this is another difference between law and ethics. Okay, so we need to be care about these items. We have some other definitions. For example, liability. It means that legal obligation of an entity extending beyond criminal or contact laws, including legal obligation to make restitution. It means that when I'm joining to a society, I should be clear that in that society there are some rules. Okay, when I enter to that society or that group, I sign a contract. Okay, I'm going to this group, I'm joining to this company, and I'm signing this contract. And in that contract, I accept some laws. So if I do something in that society, in that group, based on that contract, I'm responsible about my acts. Restitution is means to compensate for wrongs committed by an organization or its employee. Due care is means that ensuring that employees knows what constitutes acceptable behavior and know the consequences of illegal or unethical actions. It means that everybody in a group, in a society, must know the laws. If they forget or if they deny a law, as I said, there are some sanctions and penalties. So due care means that uh, we should ensure that the whole employees knows about everything about those forces, those penalties. Okay, they should know which behavior is acceptable, which one is not acceptable, which one results in penalty. Okay, this duker. It means that I should prepare some training, some education for people who are staying in my society, staying in my group, staying in my organization. And due diligence means making a valid effort to protect others, continually maintaining level of efforts. Due diligence means that during the time I should be care and I should protect the others, the other people in the society, in the group. Okay. When we talk about these items, we should go further to something else. If I forget, or if I deny to act to a law, to do something based on law, it's possible that something wrong happens, and at that time we need jurisdiction. For example, if someone kills somebody else, okay, at that time the courts will have enough rights to enter to the company and act based on the laws in the society. Killing someone is something beyond the territory or beyond the what happens in the organization. Okay. And at that time, the court a judge must enter to the organization and judge about what happens. We call it long arm jurisdiction. It means that any court have enough right to impose the laws, impose authority to any individual. Okay, so based on this slide, I can say that there are two types of laws. Some laws are internal inside the society, internal inside the organization, internal inside the groups. For example, when I joined to Arab University, I signed a contract. I said, for example, I will teach a student and I will publish some papers and something like that. Okay. During the time, if I don't act based on that contract, the university can fire me Okay, you don't act based on the contract, so you are fired. Okay, you are fired. This is something internal, but there are some other laws governed by the governance, applied by the governance in a state, governance in a country, or maybe international laws. Based on those national or international laws, the courts outside of my organization have enough rights to apply some penalties to me inside the organization. Okay, remember this definitions here. Let me go further. We will back to this definition. We have one more definition. We call it policy. Policy means body of expectations that describe acceptable or unacceptable employee behaviors in the workspace. Okay, acceptable and unacceptable employee behaviors. So I can say that if I apply policies, it's something similar to laws. So applying policies is something similar to laws, and we should be carefully, and we should ensure that those policies are completely, appropriately, fairly applied to everyone. So maybe someone asked me, okay, what is the difference between the policy and law? There's a big difference between policy and law. As I said, if I forget a law, I can maybe I will receive some penalties if I forget, if I don't act based on law. There are some penalties for me. Okay, but if I forget a policy, if I don't act based on a policy, there is no penalty for me. Maybe in some cases, maybe ignorance of a policy is an acceptable defense. Maybe. So policy and laws are similar together, but I can ignore a policy based on conditions, but I cannot ignore a law. Okay. So maybe someone asked me, okay, how can I enforce a policy? To enforce a policy, because here I said that I should carefully ensure that the policies are completely, appropriately, and fairly applied to everyone. To do this, to enforce a policy, we need to do something. For example, we need to disseminate or distribute the policies. We should to review those policies for people. We should understand those policies. We should agree with those policies, and uh, we should enforce those policies uniformly to everybody in the society or in the organization. Okay. Each of these items, disseminating, reading, understanding, agreement, and uniform enforcement, uh, is a big area for itself. Okay, so I don't want to enter to those areas, but I know that if I want to enforce, to apply a policy, I should be care about these areas. Okay, we talked about law, but there are different types of law. One of them is civil, criminal, private, and public. The civil law means that the laws who are governed by the nation or state government, and this civil law manages the relationship and conflict between organization and people. Okay, there are some criminal laws. Uh, these laws are addresses about addresses the violations, harmful violations in society. For example, someone kills someone. Okay, criminal laws are enforced by the state government or by the national government. It depends. For example, in Iran, criminal laws are governed by the national government. But in the United States, there are some states, 52 states in the United States, and each of them has its rules, its laws, its criminal laws. Okay, some laws are private. It means that they are applied in some private groups. For example, between some individuals or between inside an organization or something like that. But some laws are public. Uh, these types of laws are applied by the government, and they are about the relationship between citizenship, between employees, between government agencies, and something like that. Okay, so there are rules for everybody, everyone. If you look for, if you look for uh, laws in the field of information security, we should say that the United States is the leader of the development of some those laws. The United States is the leader in development and implementing uh, laws related to information security. Those laws are about business environment and stable economy. Mm, and the United States faced with different security issues in those cases. So uh, they define different laws, and even they announce penalties for individuals and organizations if they uh, couldn't they fail to follow the requirement of that laws. For example, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986, National Information Infrastructure Protection Act of 1996, U.S. Patriot Act of 2001, U.S. Patriot Improvement and Reauthorization Act or Computer Security Act of 1987. There are some examples of those laws, especially in general crime laws, in computer crime laws. Okay. One of the hottest topics in today's information security is privacy. Privacy means that a state of being free from unsanctioned intrusion. This is the definition of privacy. Privacy means that I decided to gather and aggregate some data from different sources, something like that, okay? During this data gathering, I should be care about privacy. Though it means that those data must not disclosure some person's information, private information. For example, I am sick, for example, okay? I have a I have some illness, okay? And I don't want someone else knows about my illness. Here, privacy means that my information must not disclose. Even if they decided to disclose my information, they should change their information so that my identity, so that someone else could not find my identity based on those data. Okay? This is privacy. It's a hot topic in information security. Changing data so that hiding identities in those information, especially when we talk about hospital information. Okay. To do this, in the United States, there are several laws. For example, privacy of customer information section of the Common Carrier Regulation or Federal Privacy Act of 1974, Electronic Communication Privacy Act of 1986, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, Financial Service Modernization Act or Act 1999, okay, Crime, Bleach, and Billy Act of 1999. There are some laws who are related to keeping privacy of information of customer information. Why we should be care about the privacy or something like that? It's a simple question, but very important question. Why we should be care about person's identity or privacy or something like that. One of the most easiest attacks is someone comes and theft the identity of someone else. Thefting identity is one of the outcomes of a weak privacy policy, having a weak privacy policy. Federal Trade Commission in the United States say that identity theft occurring when someone uses your personally identifying information like your name, your social security number or credit card numbers without your permission to commit fraud or other crimes. Okay? It's a definition of identity theft. And in this definition, we can see that someone else theft my identity without my permission to do something bad, for example, to commit its fraud, or doing something criminal with my identity. It's important, with my identity. So in the United States, there are some documents and some laws related to fraud and other activities in connection with identification documents, authentication features, and information related to this thefting identity of other people's. Okay. For example, but there are other laws. For example, laws in the field of export and branch, Economic Espionage Act of 1996, Security and Freedom through Encryption Act of 1999. There are some other laws in this field. Okay, one of the main international laws is copyright law, especially in the United States. Okay, copyright law is part of intellectual property. According to the intellectual property laws, the government is responsible to protect intellectual property of different people. Based on this law, in the United States, the laws extend this intellectual property laws to electronic formats, and they call it copyright law. So copyright law is related to the electronic formats of people's property. Okay. How we should be clear about these copyright laws? If I want to act based on copyright law and be respect about intellectual property laws, before using some materials, I should give acknowledgement from the owner of that data, owner of that file, owner of that material. If you read papers, you can see that, okay, the others write a sentence, and at the end of that sentence, they prepare a number in brackets. For example, it means the number of the reference number of that sentence. For example, something like this. In bracket, I write number 5. It means that I bring this sentence from reference number 5. But what's that reference? Go to the reference part of the paper and find reference 5. The others in that reference mention this sentence. Using that referencing function, I acknowledge the copyright law. Okay, this sentence is not mine. This is the reference 5 sentence. Even if it's true, reference 5 is responsible. If it's not true, again, reference 5 is responsible. If you want to read more about copyright laws, you can go to the US Copyright Office website in the address of www.copyright.gov. You can go to this site and find other useful materials about acting based on copyright laws. Okay. There are some other laws and reports. For example, we have some financial reports. Sovereigns and Auxiliary Act of 2002. These financial reports helps us. Says that, okay, you should report your financial behaviors. Why I should report my properties or my financial activities? Why? By doing this financial reporting, we increase the reliability and accuracy of financial reports. We increase the accountability of financial reports. Others can check those reports. And based on these acts, this Sarbanes and Oxley Act of 2002, if someone if someone prevent to publish those reports, there are some penalties and penalties and fines, maybe jail for those people who prepare wrong financial reports or does not prepare reliable and accurate reports. Okay, so there are some penalties for those reports, those wrong reports. In 1966, there is another law in the United States. They called it freedom of information. Based on this law, everybody can access to the information of federal agencies, government agencies. Okay, but we should exclude the data related to the national security. Firstly, we should remove data related to the national security and the other data. Should be accessible by other people. For example, I can go to an agency and say, okay, I need this information. Based on this law, Freedom of Information Act of 1966, that agency must disclose the related information. Nothing else. Nothing more. I'm asking for that information, and they said, okay, this information are not related to the national security, so they simply disclose those information. But again, no one will disclose national security data. Those data are protected from disclosure. Okay. Also, in some countries, there are some local government, for example, state government. Maybe those government apply some extra rules. So I should be care about the local rules. I should be care about the state rules. I should be care about national rules. I should be care about international rules. And now, when we talk about information security, a professional man or woman in information security is responsible to understand the whole laws and regulation in the state and in the country. Why? Because based on those regulations, based on those laws, someone else, maybe outside of the organization, can comply. Can complain from my organization. So the professional in information security must know different laws. They are responsible for this. especially when we talk about IT and ICT, when we talk about information security. We should know and realize that in IT and ICT worlds, we are doing business over internet. It means that our business is global. So we should be sensitive about the laws inside the country and outside the country. We should be care about the ethical values in different societies, in different countries, in different cultures. As a professional, I cannot say everything everywhere. At the first of this session, I said that there are some ethical behaviors in Iraq. They are not ethical in Iran. And there are some ethics in Iran which they are not ethical in Iraq. So I cannot easily talk about everything in Iraq as an Iranian. I cannot. Iran and Iraq have different societies. They are different countries. So most of their cultures are different. I should be clear about this. I should be sensitive about this. And because of these complexities in relationship between different countries, between different cultures, between different nations, we can see that there are a few laws, international laws related to the privacy and information security. Just a few international laws. Inside the country, yes, you can see there are several laws and privacies and policies, okay? But internationally, no. Just there are a few international laws related to the privacy and information security because of the complexity between the relationship complexity of relationship between different nations, different cultures, different societies. And generally, I can say that international laws are important, but they are limited in their enforceability. For example, the United Nations says that, okay, we should do something else. For example, in current days, the United Nations says that, okay, Russia, you should stop the war against Ukraine. Who is scared? Russia won't stop the war. We know that the position of the United Nations, UN is very important. It has a high level position in the between different countries, but it cannot enforce its rules. Okay. In the Europe, we have a council for cybercrime convention. This council is responsible to establish international task for internet security functions based on different technologies. They try to improve the effectiveness of international investigation into breaches of technology laws, and they are doing something about copyright laws and something like that. Okay, but again, lacks realistic provisioning for enforcement. Again, you know, this council is very important. They do something very important. They are working on intellectual property rights. They are working on in different investigation about the breaches in different technology laws and something like that. But they lacks realistic provisioning for enforcement. Why? Because it's an international council. And as I said, international laws are limited in their enforceability. Okay? WTO, or World Trade Organization. This is an international organization for working on trading between different countries. Okay? This organization have an agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. This is the first significant international effort to protect intellectual property rights. We are talking about intellectual property rights because we know that, as I said, when we are focusing on electronic formats, it's related to the IT and ICT area. Okay, so WTO prepared this agreement. This agreement has 5 different issues. Application of basic principles of trading system and international intellectual property agreements, giving adequate protection to intellectual property rights, enforcing of those rights by countries in their own territory, settling intellectual property disputes, and transitional agreement while new system is being introduced. There are 5 different issues. If you look on these issues, you can see there are some international laws, but WTO, look at this one here, enforcing of those rights by countries in their own territory. WTO says that, okay, I prepare rights and laws and everything for you, but you countries, you government, you are responsible to enforce them in your territory, in your country. How? When a country joins the WTO, the government must sign a contract. In that contract, WTO says that, okay, you are joining to WTO as a new member, but here you acknowledge that you have followed WTO rules in your country. You are responsible. The government is responsible to follow WTO recommendations, follow WTO rules, agreements, everything. By this, I can say that, okay, although the WTO is an international organization, but its rules, its laws, will force it by the government inside the countries. The government who are member of WTO. There are another laws, for example, Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Uh, this contribute to international effort to reduce impact of copyright and trademark and privacy infringement. Uh, there is a similar law in the European. We call it 95/46/EC. It's similar to Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's added some protections to individual with regard to processing and free movement of personal information. Okay. The United Nations Charter. They prepare an information warfare. They prepare some rules, some documents, some studies about information warfare and how we can secure the information during an information warfare. It involves the use of information technology to conduct organization and lawful material operation. It tries to separate the military zone and unmilitary zones. Okay, it means that, okay, in military you can use information warfare in military zone. The armies can use information warfare, but those armies have not enough rights to use those warfares against unmilitary people. Look at this one here. In this slide, you can see ten ethics or ethical behavior in computers. 10 different ethical behaviors related to information security. For example, nobody should use a computer to harm other people. Nobody should interfere the people's computer work. Nobody should use a computer to steal. Nobody should use a computer to bear false witness. Nobody should use intellectual property, use different other people's intellectual properties, and something like that. Okay, you can see, you can read this list here. There are 10 different items, and in this list, in these 10 topics, all of them are ethical items. For example, okay, nobody can use a computer to harm other people. it's something ethical. But we know that hackers will do that. So it's something ethical. You know, when we talk about ethics, ethics are different from one culture to another culture. So some things are ethical in one culture, while it's not ethical in another culture. The problem, the difficulty arises when something is ethical in one country, inside a nation, but it's not ethical in another country. Something is ethical here, but it's not ethical in somewhere else. For example, in Iran, you can you can find and buy a Windows DVD, Windows 10 DVD easily. It's very cheap. You can buy other DVDs from different consist of different products from different countries, from different companies. For example, you can easily you can find and buy Microsoft Office or Visual Studio, SQL Server, or something like that. Everything. They are very cheap in Iran. This is something ethical in Iran. But, for example, in the West, it's not ethical. So there is a big difference, there is conflict here. If Iran tries to join to WTO, firstly they should think about this problem, this culture. Based on international laws, you cannot sell a product without acknowledgement of the main company, the original company. Okay? So it's not easy. It's not easy. One more thing. What is the relationship between ethics and education? It's very important. If we review the ethical perception, ethical behavior in different society, we can see that there is a big difference between the ethical behaviors in societies with higher level of education and ethical behaviors in societies with lower level of education. So it's very important for us. Education is very important. If we are looking for higher level of ethical behaviors, we must focus on education. Especially, we have to train all employees in our organization. We have to train the employees, especially in the field of information security. We have trained them, okay, what is the ethical behavior in the field of information security? We have to train them. We must create a level, a minimum level of information in all employees' mind. Those employees must inform about information and security. They should be well prepared against information security risk. They should be low risk users for the system. So education is very important. I should train my employee to make them informed, to well prepare them against the risk, the information risk, security risks. They should be prepared against different ethical behaviors. So let me focus on something else. Let me okay. Okay. Why people do something unethical, something illegal? Why? If you look for this, the reasons why people do something unethical or something illegal, we can say that there are three different causes: ignorance, accident, and intent. Maybe I ignore something. Okay, I ignore. I'm busy. I forget doing something. For example, I forget to lock something. I ignore. Someone, there is an accident. I don't forget something, but there's an accident. It's not my fault. There's an accident. But sometimes there are some intents. Somebody do something wrong and he knows that that is wrong, but he did it. He knows, okay, this is illegal and I know this is illegal, but I do it. Intent. What we should do, we should choose and apply the best method to prevent those illegal or unethical activities. We call it deterrence. preventing illegal or unethical activities. How? Using laws, using policies, using technical controls, and something like that. Okay, how? It depends. Laws and policies only deter if there are three conditions are presented. We cannot deter laws and policies forever, whenever. There must be three conditions, three different conditions. Fear of penalty. Oh, if I do something wrong, I should pay penalty. Okay, I'm fearing. Fear of penalty. Probability of being cuffed. Oh, but let me look around. Is there anybody here? Maybe someone look at me. I'm doing something wrong. Maybe someone look at me. Probability of being cuffed. Probability of penalty being administered. Okay, someone look at me. And by the way, I'm doing something wrong. Someone looks at me and maybe I have to pay penalty. Okay? If these three conditions be presented, it means that I'm fearing if I do something wrong, someone comes and will apply the penalty to me, will administrate penalty to me. And because of this fairness, I decided to do nothing. I forget to do something illegal. I'm care about my activities. You know, I'm care about my activities. Okay, don't do a wrong item. Otherwise, you must pay penalty. You know, there is a fear inside my body. I always fear about that. Yes, because of punishment, I fear. Okay. Uh, let me. For example, you say in Quran, Holy Quran, the God says, okay, أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. This is a fear. If I do something wrong, the God says that, okay, you must go to Jahannam. You must go to Nar. You know, this is a deterrence. The God in the Quran says that if you do something wrong, you will go to the Nar, to Jahannam. So I'm fearing. Okay, don't do that. Okay, it's 4:36. We have a 15 minutes break. Okay, I will stop the recording for 15 minutes, and after that, we will continue the course. Okay, so I'm stopping the pausing the record. Okay, after 15 minutes, we will back again. Okay, let me continue the course. Until now, we talk about the effect of ethics and laws in our society, uh, and especially in our organization. We call that. We say that okay, there are some laws, maybe internal laws inside my organization, maybe national laws, state laws, international laws. There are some ethics uh, and different laws and ethics and policies around me. And as a information security professional, we must be aware about those laws and ethics and policies. We must know them, inform about them. We must be care about them and ensure that we uh, act based on those laws. Okay. Uh, okay. Uh, and because of this, if we look around, we can see there are several professional organizations around the world who are working on this area, working on conducting laws, ethics, policies, and something like that. Uh, why? Because although mm, after a while I can train my employees about the laws, ethics, and something like that, but always my organization will accept to join new members. New members will join to my organization. And what about them? I should train them. And because of this, we need those professional organization. Those professional organization responsible for security according to ethics, security and ethics policies, employees, and different laws in society and different items. For example, ACM, or Association of Computing Machinery, it's established in 47, excuse me, 1947. The first educational and scientific computing society in the world. This society works on ethics, preparing some references in protecting information in confidentiality, casuing, no harm, protecting privacy, and something like that. Oh, okay. Or ISC2 is another non-profit organization focusing on development and implementing information security certification. Or SANS, System Administration, Networking, and Security Institute. Again, it's a professional organization working on protecting information and systems. Okay, this organization prepares some certification called Global Information Assurance Certification, or ISACA, another association organization working on auditing, control, and security. It prepares some practices and the standards for IT departments. Okay, it has some codes for ethics between ITS between professionals. ISA, again, another non-profit society in the field of information security. or for example, in the United States, Department of Homeland Security, NSA, Security Services in the United States, and some other organizations. So when we touch about uh, organization who can help us in the field of laws and ethics and policies, there are several organizations, national and international organizations, they can help us in this field. Okay. Oh, this is the last slide. Sorry for that. So today we learned that there are several laws around ourselves, in our society, in our country, in our world, and as a professional, if we must know that if we do something in IT world, we are collaborating with the world, not with a small society. We are collaborating with the world. So we must know about our behaviors. We must know about the laws. We must be care about the policies, about the ethics. Ethics in our organization, policies in our organization, policies in our society, in our nation, ethics in our nations, ethics in other nations. For example, maybe someone says, for example, a company sent its product from one country, from country A to country B, for example. Okay? If CEO of the company says something bad about the country B, what will happen? You know, those words maybe are not against the law, but those bad words are something unethical. So it's possible that those words became a negative view about that company in country B. So we must be clear about the laws, about the ethics, about the policies, and if we implement a law, we must prepare some preliminaries to ensure that that law, that policy would be enforced in the society and people will follow that policy, that rule, that law. The fear of penalty is a rule. By fear, oh, if I do this, I must pay lots of money as a penalty. It has some fear. So I don't repeat that wrong action. You know, as an IT security professional, when we are talking about security, we have several risks in our organization related to the security of information. And I repeated before, and I will repeat it in the future again. The most weakest link in information security in an organization are people who are collaborating with the organization. It means that if you use the best technology in the world to secure your platform, your organization, that's very good. But you cover only half of security in your organization, information security in your organization. Half of the other half of security in your organization are your people, your employee. What about them? What did you do for them? You must prepare laws, policies. You must be clear about the ethics and something like that. You must learn those policies, laws, and ethics to your employee, to deterrence, to reduce the chance of happening something bad, something wrong inside the organization between different people, between caused by employees. So, as a professional, IT professional, we must be clear about these things. Maybe we need to prepare some laws, some new laws in our organization, so we can use current practices, current laws, current documents to prepare new laws and ethics. Maybe we should work with the administration of the company. Maybe we should work on education. Maybe we should work with other professional organization outside of the company. By the way, we must focus on this area, and we must know enough about the laws. Why? Because maybe something happened inside our organization, and the effect of that act, effect of what happened in my organization, is something beyond our organization. So at that time, we need to go to courts. Someone else, maybe the government, state government or national government, needs to judge about what happens inside my organization. Okay, so we need to focus on this course, on this topic before continuing. Okay, that is enough for today. Thank you for joining the class. Is there any question? There is no question? Okay, I repeat again, tomorrow night we will have exam from chapter 1, the multiple choice questions, some multiple choice question. We will have it. You can go to the LMS and join the exam. I will prepare the rest of information about this quiz inside the in the WhatsApp group. Okay. I wish the best for you, and have a good day. Goodbye.